Hello, I'm Michael Reed, Vedic astrologer with over 20 years of experience in the astrological field. If you're interested in scheduling an astrological consultation, you can do so with me through the astrological services page, which you will see linked above, or you can schedule with Levi, who's my very special guest for this particular discussion. Information on Levi's services is at his website, which you will see linked in the text description below. In addition to that, I have two courses, one that is ongoing and another one which starts in August. For information on either or both of those courses, you can please follow the link which you'll see above in this video. So in this second part of my conversation with Levi, we continue our conversation on the Deeptaadi and Lajittaadi Avasthas. I do hope that you enjoy the rest of our conversation. Stay tuned for part 3 sometime in the coming week.
There's 6 Lajittaadi Avasthas. There's the Garvita Avastha, which is the proud Avastha. Okay, if this is obvious, right? This is very connecting to the Deeptaadi Avastha. And these are also kind of based on the first 4 here. Garvita, Mudita, Kshudita, and Trishita are also based on natural dignity, on, right? Garvita, proud Avastha, is also when a planet is in exaltation or Mula Trikona, which is the same as the Deepta Avastha. Then Mudita is relating to Pramudita, right? The Deeptaadi Avastha of Pramudita. So Mudita is the second Lajittaadi Avastha. This is when a planet is in a friend sign, joined with Jupiter, joined or Graha aspected by a friend. Okay, so see here we see again these the dignity coming up, right? Being in a natural friend sign and so on. These are the 2 favorable Lajittaadi Avasthas. Whenever a planet is in the Vargas, right? So this is going to be important. The Vargas represent the specific areas in a person's life, okay? Like the Saptamsha can connect to your children, the Navamsha to your marriage, and the ashram you belong to, and so on. Garvita and Mudita Avastha, the 2 favorable Lajittaadi Avasthas, are going to be experienced fully when a planet is in the Deeptaadi Avastha of Deepta, Swashta, Pramudita, or Shanta. Right? These are the 4 avasthas that reflect good dignities. So whenever a planet is in that dignity, in one of these dignities, then it's going to give more of Garvita and Mudita based on the influence it receives, of course, than the Kshudita or Trishita, right? The bad dignities here. But I will just first go over what these starved and thirsty avasthas are in Lajittaadi Avasthas.
So can it, just briefly, so the point
Sure.
you're trying to make is that, the Lajittaadi Avasthas are to be taken from the Rashi chart. And the Deeptaadi Avasthas can be done in the Varga chart. Yes,
absolutely.
To clarify for the listeners? Okay.
Absolutely. Lajittaadi Avasthas, the Kshudita Avastha is the miserable Avastha or the starved Avastha. This is the Avastha of Saturn. This is when a planet is in a natural enemy sign, joined with Saturn, joined or a Graha aspect by an enemy. Okay. And then Trishita is when a planet is thirsty. This is when a planet is in a water sign and only Graha aspected by an enemy. So when you have Venus in Pisces and the moon is aspecting, and that's the only planet, and that moon is going to be thirsty. It's not going to be starved. When the moon is conjuncting Venus, right, because of moon is an enemy towards Venus, Venus is going to be starved because it's not aspected, it's conjunct. See, so this is Trishita is only when a planet is in a water sign and only Graha aspected by an enemy. Okay, so these are the 4 Lajittaadi Avasthas which will be qualified by these first 7 Deeptaadi Avasthas. So this is why these percentages are indicated here. So a planet in Deepta and Swashta Avashta, right? Here we see 100% are in a great dignity, right? In Lajittaadi, in the Deeptaadi Avastha, which is great, it's perfect, and 100% giving. So whenever a planet is in these dignities, then in terms of Lajittaadi Avasthas, the person is only going to feel, and this is relating to the Vargas, is only going to experience the Garvita or Mudita Avastha. There's only going to be proudness and delight experienced when these, when the Deeptaadi Avastha of that planet is Deepta or Swashta. And this is throughout all the Vargas. And this is a very, important and intelligent way of, and efficient way of, an effective way of differentiating between what is really being experienced in the different areas in a person's life, because a person can feel starvation in one area, but another area is perfectly fine. Okay, and so this is what this technique shows. When we include the Pramudita and Shanta Avasthas, we see that Pramudita gives 90% of favorable effect and 10% of unfavorable starvation or thirst. See, so here for the Shanta, we see 75% of good Lajittaadi effects will be experienced, and 25% of the thirst or the starvation will be experienced. See, so these are very strong. These good dignities will bring out, especially Garvita and Mudita, a lot more, depending on the strength of that aspect, the strength of that Lajittaadi influence. Then, of course, when a planet is in Dina Avastha, it's going to give 50% of bad, 50% of good Lajittaadi Avastha. So a planet that is in a neutral dignity is going to potentially give 50% Garvita, Mudita, and or give 50% Kshodita, Trishita. Now, I know this is all the theory. We're going to implement that practically and see at a horoscope. Because, see, the thing is that, for example, when you have a horoscope with 4 or 5 planetary conjunctions, how are you going to judge that? Because all these planets are consciousness aspects. How are you going to differentiate, what the sun is doing with Saturn, with Ketu in the first house, for example? So this is a way of going about this. Dukkita and Kala or Beta Avastha are the two, bad Avasthas, we could say unfavorable Avasthas. This is planet's going to give 35% of its positive, and all the rest is going to be, negative 65%. And in a great enemies Rashi, it's going to be 25% of good effects, and so meaning fulfillment. And this is, of course, fulfillment that is based on the Rashi chart, right? Because this is where the Lajittaadi Avasthas are being calculated from, right? The Rashi chart sets the whole stage for the way these Avasthas will be experienced. And then Beta, of course, the low, depressed, alarmed Avastha is going to give 0% favorable Avasthas, meaning Garvita of Mudita. There's not going to be any of that when a planet is in the Deeptaadi Avastha of Beta. But the whole Kshodita and Trishitra Avastha will be experienced relative to that Varga. So these 7 have a strong say on how these first 4 Lajittaadi Avasthas are going to be experienced. So let's say we have Venus in exaltation in the Saptamsha chart. Let's say Venus is in exaltation. Let's say Venus is heavily starved in the Rashi chart by Lajittaadi Avasthas. It's heavily afflicted by friends. Let's say Venus is in Pisces. It's conjunct the Sun. It's conjunct Saturn and the Moon, let's say. So it's an amazing situation for Venus because it's exalted, but it's severely starved by all these enemies. So this Venus is going to feel miserable, right? So when we say Venus, let's say Venus is exalted in the Saptamsha chart, okay, it's not going to feel that starvation at all in that Saptamsha chart because of its Deeptaadi Avastha there. Okay, so that's going to be important. Let's say Venus is exalted in the Saptamsha, but it has heavy starvation based on the Lajittaadi Avasthas. Then particularly, to that Varga, to Saptamsha, to children, there's not going to be starvation felt at all. Perhaps that is going to be a good situation or a good aspect, a good area in the person's life that they feel a lot of proudness and delight from, even though there can be a lot of starvation felt based on that Rashi Lajittaadi influence. Okay. Now, then we also have the Vikala and the Kopi, right? These 2 here, Deeptaadi Avasthas, which are also going to be very important in the way we're going to experience shame, frustration, agitation. Because there's 2 Lajittaadi Avasthas, which are the Lajitta Avastha and the Kshobita Avastha, which are not taken into consideration here. Okay, so they will be experienced in the Varga charts no matter the Deeptaadi Avastha. And this is also going to be determined by the Vikala and the Kopi Avastha, how they connect in the Vargas. So any planet that is conjunct Saturn or the Sun or Mars in the 5th house is going to feel shame. Or any planet that is with the Sun or Saturn or Mars and with Rahu or Ketu in any house is also going to be feeling shame. That is the Lajitta Avastha. Okay, this is the ashamed Avastha, which is a very important one. Now, whenever you have a planet ashamed, let's say Mercury is ashamed in the Rashi chart because it's with Saturn and the North Node, for example, right? Whenever that Mercury is conjunct cruel planets, and this is also including the waning moon, then in that Varga, the person is going to feel shame as well. If that shame planet, Mercury, in the Saptamsha is not conjunct any cruel planet, it's not going to feel shame in respect to children, for example. But if Mercury is with the Sun, or let's say with Saturn, right, in that Saptamsha, and it's starved in the Rashi chart, then it's going to feel shame in regards relating to children as well. And this seems to work really well. Takes so much of a person's energy in terms of psychology, right? It's when there's lingering shame, it goes deep within in our subconscious being, and it's important to become aware of it and to tackle it. So I think it's good that in astrology we can also see it and bring it forth, and for people to deal with it. Then also a planet can be in Shobita Avastha, which of course relates to the Kopi Avastha. Shobita is when a planet is with the sun. It's going to be Shobita, right? It's going to be frustrated or agitated. So whenever that planet is also conjunct the sun in any Varga, relating to that Varga, there's going to be frustration felt or agitation felt. So when the sun is with Venus in the Rashi chart, and then you have Venus with the sun in the Saptamsha, then relating to children, there's also going to be a frustration or agitation experienced. Okay, so these two are exceptions. So we have the 7 Deeptaadi Avasthas who qualify what these first 4 Lajittaadi Avasthas have to say, right, relating to the Varga charts and so on. But the Lajitta Avastha, the ashamed Avastha, and the Kshobita, the frustrated Avastha, are not dependent upon that. This is dependent upon whether that ashamed planet is connected or conjunct a cruel planet in any Varga. It's going to feel that shame relating to that Varga. And or when any planet is conjunct the sun, when that planet is also conjunct the sun in any Varga, it's going to feel frustration or agitation in that Varga as well. Is that clear, Michael?
Definitely. I think it will become clearer to people when if
yes.
you take them through an example step by step. Yeah,
exactly.